What is good, guys and girls of YouTube? My name is Justin Omoi, and we are here today learning about MIDI. MIDI is Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It's an acronym. MIDI actually sends signals to other controllers or to be able to operate on devices such as computer programs nowadays. Nowadays, in the new technology, we would use USB 2.0 cables instead of MIDI cables. Now, if you don't know what MIDI cables are, they're actually 5-pin cables. Let me go ahead and do that. 5-pin DIN cables, so it looks like that. These cables were used and still are used in music, but these are to use for sending signals to other keyboards or devices. But what these cables are used for, back in the day, it was mainly for layering keyboards, but I use this to be able to record good performances with sounds on the keyboard. So that's a actual keyboard and it has MIDI, and I could be able to plug this in to be able to record a performance that I want, and I painted in within the program to be able to be played. I'll show you examples of that soon. MIDI is not sounds. MIDI is actual signals. They're binary ones and zeros. So don't think that if you use a MIDI cable, you'll be able to get sound from your device, because these are all about signals. MIDI has a lot, and I mean a lot, of different signals, whether it be the velocity for a note, the note turning on, the note turning off, sustain knobs, modulation wheels, pitch wheels. They're a different monster. But there's a lot of things. We can use the faders is a type of MIDI input. Knobs are a type of MIDI input. Drum pads are a type of MIDI input, and they all have their own velocities. So those are, its actual other inputs as well. MIDI also controls how many prolific notes you could press. If you could press more than one or two. There's also things known as after tension, meaning after the note is pressed down on the keyboard. If your keyboard has like a weighted system, you'll be able to have something known as aftertouch, which is the amount of pressure you put in after you press the note. Those are only some of the many. There's probably a lot more that I didn't speak about, but yeah, just know MIDI signals, there's a lot of them and they do a lot of different things. So I explained the basics of MIDI and I even show you the cable, but where did these cables go into? Well, in MIDI, there's actually 3 different ports of MIDI cables you could install, or not even install, but put into and be able to apply and work with. That is the MIDI in, the MIDI out, and the MIDI through. These are 3 different things. These are 3 different things used within MIDI. Don't worry, it's not hard to understand. Just know this. MIDI in takes in the data. MIDI out gives out the data that you input within the keyboard, and MIDI through is known as a daisy chain, meaning I could send what you sent to me through to another device. Not to worry, I have all 3 different ports on many different systems, so I'll be able to show you examples of that. So yes, hopefully you guys and girls understand that. Let's go into actual examples and show you what MIDI could do. Forgot to mention one more thing. MIDI also has 16 different ports that you could use for different channels. Basically, ports are channels. Just know that MIDI channel number 10 is always dedicated towards a drum pad. Yeah. Alright, so for this first example, I'm going to show you that we have 2 different keyboards. This one is a MIDI key controller. This does not have any sound or anything embedded into it. It's a M Audio Axiom 49, I believe 1st generation, because the 2nd generation got like a number pad, and I'm kind of jealous about that, you know what I'm saying? Next up, we have the Casio LK, so Casio LK100 lighting key system. So when I press a note, notice it lights up. This does have 100 different tones. Let me go ahead and fix the focus. This has 100 different tones, so you could, swap out numbers. So if I go 89 or 98 or 85, let's just say 85, 00. But I like, was it number 7? So on the back of the M Audio Axiom, look at this bootleg battery. We have a MIDI out cable, and this MIDI out cable is going into the Casio. Let me just, show that brand, you know what I'm saying? Sponsor me, please. We have it going into the MIDI in. So let me go ahead and fix the zoom. Yep, MIDI in. So what is going on is when I press on the keyboard here, notice the input that I'm inputting into the keyboard is going out into this keyboard here. So notice that keyboard does not have any pitch wheel or modulation wheel, octave button, faders like this one does. We could do things that this keyboard couldn't do with this keyboard. So example, I'm going to press this note. And notice how the pitch got modulated. Well, not modulated, but just notice the pitch got bent because we are able to do it on this keyboard. So let me go ahead and press these keys. Cool, right? We could also use the octave. So go up octave. We only have like a certain limitation, so there we go. We also could use the fader here to control the volume. Yep. And then we have these buttons here that will allow us to change the tone from, I believe, 1 to 9 or 0 to 8 or something. Oh. Well, that's the same one. 0 and 1, they're the same. If we press that one, let's press this one, and I believe this one's the harps. The harpsichord. So yes, and remember what I said about port 10 being a drum percussion thing? Notice I have 8 pads here. I'm not good at the pads. But notice how we could control the port number 10 as well as whatever port we're using here. I'm guessing 1 or whatever. But we could use the sound as well as the drum pad at the same time. Cool, right? Now let's take this even a step further. Now, because we have the out here, we can have this going into that keyboard. We also have a USB cord going into the computer, meaning I can use my music program here, as you see, to be able to control that. So for some keyboards, you have to switch the MIDI out into USB mode. So if I hit the button that says edit, then I press the one that says MIDI out. So let me see if I could fix that for you. This one right here, MIDI out. If you press it, it'll turn on the USB. We'll still be able to use this, but we won't be able to use any of these pitch wheels or the volume. That's because the computer took part of the host for many of the things. This still works because, keyboard, it's automatically you need. But look here. Notice that it's the piano and not the drum pad anymore. So yes, basically what happened is that we're taking the host of the USB and putting it into the computer here. So as you see on the computer, we set up the MIDI input. So we have the port of the Axiom's output as well as the input in the same port. Notice they both say 1. And we have a, we have a MIDI out, meaning we're using this to go into the out port, port 1, selected. And notice there's a lot of different crazy notes here. What this allows us to do is be able to play the MIDI notes out into this keyboard, which will then play into there. So if I hit play, you'll notice it'll play that track. Ain't that cool? But if you take a notice, let me go ahead and hit stop. If you take a notice that the sounds are not not being played in the program, but it is played on the keyboard as you heard through this speaker. Now, in order to send that signal into our audio interface, we will need what is known as a TRS chord, a 1/4. So let me go ahead and set that up for you guys and girls now and show you that. Okay. Now we have the TRS cable. Let me go ahead and go under the hood. Notice it is in the phone's output TRS cable, and that is going into our audio interface. Now you can't see that. So yes, once it is inside of the input, right, we'll be able to hook it up into the computer. You can see the screen into input 2. So input 2 will then be connected into here. So once we play the MIDI cables, not MIDI cable, my dumbass, the MIDI notes, it'll play into that keyboard over there, and we'll be able to record the sounds that come from this keyboard into the audio interface, which will then go into the computer. So notice the signal that is being recorded up top from this keyboard. We can even change the sound from the computer itself. Alright, I'm gonna hit stop. Alright, and for the second to final thing I'm going to show you, we have the Axiom keyboard. This is MIDI out, right? If you can see that, MIDI out. It's going into this keyboard, which I can't bring in my room for, you know, it's just heavy. A Suzuki Digital Ensemble HP 150EX General MIDI. A keyboard, another one, okay? Another one. Now, as I said, this one has different ports. This has a MIDI in, a MIDI out, and a MIDI through. So let me go ahead and see if I can get a better, man. So there's a MIDI in. That's where the this one over here is going into the in of this, and then the through is going to go over into the Casio over there, which is, you know, the same one over there. For the RCA, there's RCA out. Let me see if I can. Yeah, there you go. RCA out. Those are going into the Focusrite. We don't put it into the in because if we put the RCA into the in, it'll play the song or sound in the keyboard itself. So yeah, if I hook up my phone to it, you'll see and hear that. I be on my grind, man. Yeah, I be on my grind, man. I don't really give a fuck what you saying. I be hating, at the spraying, and I be rolling in your spot with 50 times your cadence. Yeah, I be on my grind, man. One last time, the through is going into this keyboard over here, the Casio. So yeah, we already explained that one. Right? It's going into this one. Put up the volume. And this one over here, you know, it doesn't produce sound. So notice if I play this keyboard, you're going to hear both of them as well. So let me go ahead and solo one out at a time. So this one, I'm going to put the volume down. This one, I'll keep up. Max. Go ahead and press this. That's coming from that one. So because this has a through, you'll notice the lights. If I could be able to do this, you'll notice the lights will be playing on there as well. Yeah. Thank goodness they light up. So yes, that means the keyboard is working. The MIDI is going into here, and it's going from here through there. So what if I press a key here? Notice it is not lighting up this keyboard because we are not controlling the in, the out to this. It's going from there. So notice one more. This does not produce light. It doesn't control this keyboard here. So if I do this and put this all the way up, put this down, all the way down, notice it does not do it. But this keyboard does. And once again, we have the MIDI ports connected into the computer from the key Axiom over here via USB. So it is able to connect the port. So again, for this one, we are not using port 2. That's for the interface, which I'll show you. But yes, we are using port 1 for the Axiom. Again, Scarlet port. Oh, wait, not the Scarlet. My bad. I gotta click this one. Axiom. It doesn't matter if you click it or not. But notice that's port 1 as well. And in the MIDI, we have, if I could click that and show it. Oh, wait, let me just F10. Notice port 1 as well on there. So if we hit play on this, first we have to turn the MIDI back to USB. So edit, MIDI out. Cool, the USB is on. And let me turn off this volume. Put this one up. If we hit play. Bam. Cool, right? I forgot to mention, but let me go ahead and go back to here. We could do the same pitch bending on that keyboard as well as the, was it tremolo? And the same old functions if we set this, it works on this keyboard as well. Ain't that cool? All right, last but not least, I'm going to show you that, you know, we don't need that keyboard. Where did I put the keyboard? I put the keyboard all the way over there on that couch over there. So yes, we do not need that keyboard if we have an audio interface with MIDI. Yes, my audio interface, the Focusrite Scarlett 2i4, has a MIDI input and output. This MIDI out from the interface is going into the in for the Suzuki, the big keyboard, and it's going through to the Casio keyboard. The only thing we'll have to change in that case is the actual port. So notice we have the Scarlett 2i4, and I've set that port to number 2. So 2, and the input port right here as well to 2. Yeah. So if I switch the MIDI out into port 2, which it is, and press play, notice. If we plug in the headphone, it is going into both signals. There you go. That'll fix it. If we low down the volume for this, we won't be able to hear it in there, so we'll have to raise it up. And in the mixer, we can see we have 2, audio cables that's in there. This could be done with the Axiom as well, but I just wanted to show you that. So yes, being that we have the interface connected, everything's okie dokie. And that is what MIDI does. You could use it to layer sounds, to be able to record a performance that you wouldn't be able to do on your keyboard if you're not good of a player. You could be able to control, different types of automations and faders and such. There's a lot of things you could do with MIDI, and it's a good thing that we have those cables to use. Do you really have to worry about having a MIDI cable or using a MIDI cable? Not really, unless you do want to get into analog sounds like synthesizer keyboards, or like I showed you, the Casio keyboards and so forth. You can easily plug in your own MIDI keyboard that has a USB slot and use it in your computer, rather than using MIDI cables and plugging it into your audio interface and so forth. There's a lot of different things you could do with it. But yes, I just want to show you guys and girls and teach you about MIDI, the basics of it, so you do have an understanding of what it is. And yeah, so that is it. Hopefully you guys and girls will like the video. If you do, you know what to do, right? Hit the thumbs up button. It's probably this way. And if you like learning music and want to improve yourself and stick around with your boy, be sure to subscribe, because every subscriber, when you come through, you watch the videos, you'll be able to stay up to date and watch all my new updates when I put them out soon. Yeah, you know. Thank you all for watching. My name is Justin, Omoi, and I'm about to go, you know, deal with some plants or something like that. But yes, peace.